33. 33. So last week as we talked, we saw that who did Jacob get in a wrestling match with last week? God. And as it was ending, we saw from the word that Esau was what? He was limping back to his family. He was in my eyes, I believe he was a changed man. Not that he will not make mistakes later on, because he will. But God had changed him, and he saw that at that point in time, he saw that God was in control. And like I said, it's kind of like us. God will come in and show out, and we'll trust him, but as the next problem comes, a lot of times we try to take over. But it's not necessarily that we're saying, God, I know better than you, but technically that's kind of what we're doing. So we see here in this chapter today that Esau meets his brother. What's been coming up for the last two chapters, 31 and 32, it finally comes to that point. Verses 1 through 3 says this: And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. And he divided the children unto Leah, and unto Rachel, and unto the two handmaidens. And he put the handmaidens and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph in the hindermost, or in the back. And he passed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. So we see here that what? Esau is finally here. Esau is here. And it doesn't fail to say that not only is Esau here, but who's with him? The 400 men. That Esau and these 400 men are with him. And Jacob sees that Esau has arrived. So what does Jacob do? He divides his family up. He puts the two handmaids and their children in the front. He puts Leah and her children in the middle. And the one whom he loves the most, he puts Rachel and Joseph in the back. Why do you think he did that? Huh? Protection. His thoughts were, I believe, and I still think that even though Joseph had just come wrestling with God, and God had changed his name, and he realized that God was in control, Joseph is still trying to figure it out himself. Are we all not that guilty of it too? Of doing the same thing. Joseph's thoughts were, hey, if the handmaiden and her children are in the front, not that he wanted anybody hurt, but it would give time for those in the back to escape. But then I catch something else that Joseph did. This different. This is the Joseph who is now following God, not the Joseph we seen in chapters earlier where he was still in birthrights and schemers. If he was still that old Joseph, guess what would have happened? I think he'd have still had that same lineup, but guess what? Joseph would have been all the way in the back, so he could have escaped too. But you see in this that Joseph goes ahead of them. He goes up in front of them, and he goes toward. It was a sign of respect, a sign of paying homage. He goes before them, and as he's going toward Esau, what's he doing? He's bowing as he goes to him. He's bowing as he goes to him. It says he bowed 7 times as a form to pay respect to Esau as he's coming to him. Because here's Jacob. Jacob still doesn't know what to expect. Jacob still doesn't know what's about to happen. He doesn't know if they're all dead. What's going to happen? Is he going to just kill him and take his family as slaves and go off with them? But we see something totally different. I don't know if you guys have read this or not, but 4 through 7 says this: And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. That's a whole lot different than what Jacob thought was going to happen in the earlier chapter, isn't it? It's a whole lot different than what he remembered. Esau had told him that the next time he would see him, he would what, Heather? Kill him. He had said, hey, the next time I see you, I'm going to kill you. Why was that reason? Because Jacob had stolen his birthright. Jacob had tricked his dad into thinking that he was Esau. And he hadn't seen his brother since then for like 20 years or so. And here he is. He comes in, or he's going to meet his brother. He's coming to meet his brother. And Esau does the one thing that he didn't expect from Esau. He embraces him. He hugs his neck. And it was an unexpected surprise to Jacob. And what did it say? They both wept. What a time to meet your brother and someone you hadn't seen in forever, and you did not know what to expect. And here's what you get. You get a hug from the very one you've been fretting about and worried about. And I can see at this that Jacob realized that, hey, God did have this. God is in control. God, this is going to happen. I mean, we could probably go around the room and you could probably ask you guys, and some of us may have examples of it and some of us may not. Was there a time that you met someone that you didn't get along with great in high school, y'all hated each other, and you ran into them, and that person was totally different? Now, I want you to get this. Esau still had nothing to do with God. But there was still a change in Esau. He wasn't that bitter, angry person that he used to be. There was a change in Esau, but it didn't have nothing to do with God. And that's the sad part today. There are a lot of, in our lesson today, there are a lot of good people out there that are going to die and go to hell because being a good guy, being a good woman, being a nice person, being a helpful person is not going to get you into heaven with God. It's a relationship with Him. That's what Jacob has that Esau doesn't have. Esau has gained everything, and Esau sees that he's gained everything on his own. Verse 5 says this, and he lifted up his eyes and saw the women and the children and said, who are those with thee? And he said, the children which God hath graciously given me. So as Esau's embracing him and hugging him, and brother, I haven't seen you in so long, I've missed you, all these weird things that he didn't expect to hear. Then Esau was like, well, who are these with you? And he introduces his family, and he says, this is my family. This is actually my family. This is my family that God has given me. Then the handmaidens came near, they and their children, and they bowed themselves. And Leah also with her children came near and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. So it was a big time of introducing each other, and hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm so-and-so. Names came out. It's like going to a Christmas party where everybody acts like they like you. Have you ever, I used to tell Heather we're going to the Coca-Cola Christmas party when I worked at Coke. And when we go on this Christmas party at the Coca-Cola, there's going to be people that's going to talk to me, act like they know me and talk. We worked in the same warehouse. They hadn't said a word to me the whole time they're there. But we're at the Christmas party. Ryan, it's so good to see you, man. How you doing, man? Blah, 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 blah. Act like they know me. You know, and that's kind of how it was here. It was a big introduction. There was no fakeness here. Esau was one, but that's what I see when I think of it, because that's how it was at the Coke parties. And then 8 through 11, well, that point was, if you're taking notes, Esau did the unexpected, verses 4 through 7. And then 8 through 11, we see Esau accepts Jacob's gift. And he said, what meanest thou by all this drove which I met? And he said, these are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. Now, what is Esau talking about? Esau is talking about, hey, as I was coming to you, 3 times I ran into a herd of animals, and these servants that were with him said, this is a gift from Jacob. This is a gift from Jacob. This is a gift from Jacob. And if you remember in the last 2 chapters, the reason Jacob did that, he was hoping to make Esau's heart, if it was bitter because he didn't know, tender, more forgiving, more, wow, look at what my brother's doing. He's trying to gain forgiveness. And in verse 9, and Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep thou keep that thou hast thyself. And Jacob said, Nay, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, excuse me, good night, how embarrassing. I have seen thy face as thou hast seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. Take, I pray thee, my blessing, that it is brought to thee, because God hath dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. Jacob begs him to please accept the gifts. Jacob was making up for his past mistakes with the herds of animals. He was saying, I am sorry for who I once was. Before, he was trying to get to kind of maybe calm him down from being angry, if that's what Jacob thought it was. But after this embrace, Jacob is sitting there going, please take it. I want to make amends. He wasn't looking to buy his forgiveness down, but he's saying, please, I want to make amends for what I did. What I did when I was Jacob. What I did, what I lived up to what my name was, schemer. And that's what I did when I was a younger man. But I want to make amends. Even though this may never make up for what I did, I want it to be a start. I'm sorry. Please take it. The old Jacob, when Esau said, I don't need it, would have said, yeah, sure, okay, I'll take it back. The new Jacob still, I want you to take it. I want you to have it. I'm sorry. I want to start off on the right foot with you. And he talked about how gracious, and the old Jacob would have said, oh, I have plenty anyway. Look at what I have. Look at what I did. Look what I was able to gain. But that's not what Jacob said in this. Jacob said, and if you catch in this, Esau never mentions God, but Jacob continually mentions God. God has graciously blessed me. God has graciously blessed me with everything that I've had and everything that I ever will have. You keep it. I'm okay because I trust God's going to take care of me. So if we go around the room, and I'm not meaning for you guys to talk, but have you looked in your own life and seen how God has graciously blessed you and how God has taken care of you through things that you have went through in your life? Even though they might have seemed bad and rough and like it didn't turn out like you wanted, but yet you saw the fingerprints, the hand of God in it, how He graciously took care of you during the things that you were going through in your life. And as you did, have you thanked Him for what He's done in your life? And then we see verses 12 through 16. We see that Esau tells him, he says, let us journey together. Let us journey together. And this is what he said. And he said, let us take our journey and let us go, and I will go before thee. Esau saying, hey, come on with me. Me and my 400 men, we will go with you. Now, it would be easy for us to sit there and think that when we read the next couple of verses, the reason Jacob is saying no is because he still don't trust his brother. But that's not it. I don't think that's anything in here that Jacob is thinking about. But Esau is telling him, hey, let's go together. We're brothers. We're rebuilding this relationship. I forgive you. Let's go with it. Let's fellowship together. But we see something unique here. Here's what Jacob says in 13. And he said unto him, my Lord knoweth that the children are tender or young, and the flocks and herds with young are with me, or nursing. And if men should overdrive them or overwork them, one day all the flock will die. Let me, Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will lead on softly according as the cattle that goeth before me, and the children be able to endure, until I come unto my Lord, unto Seir. So Jacob says, hey, let me do this. Jacob's being tactful. And here's the reason why Jacob is being tactful. The whole time Jacob's been praising God, Esau's pretty much been talking about what he's done. And so Jacob, being tactful, says, hey, let me stay back, because here's what Jacob knew. If they came together and they were together, his flock, we've seen it in the Bible and what we've studied in Genesis, it would overtax the land. People on Esau's side would get mad, or Jacob's side would get mad, or Jacob's side would start marrying into Esau's side of the family, or men and women would start marrying in together, and they would become unequally yoked, and that would cause trouble. 2 Corinthians 6, 14 through 18 says this: do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what partnership has righteousness and lawlessness? Or what fellowship light with darkness? Or what harmony has Christ with Belial? Or what has a believer in common with an unbeliever? Or what agreement has the temple of God with idols? For we are the temple of the living God, just as God said, I will dwell in them and walk among them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. There come out from their midst and be separate, says the Lord. And do not touch what is unclean, and I will welcome you, and I will be a father to you, and you shall be sons and daughters to me, says the Lord Almighty. Now, I know that's in the New Testament, but God still said even back then, don't be unequally yoked. And it's so true today. How many times have you seen a young woman fall in love with a man who is unsaved, has nothing to do with church? It's basically, if you don't know Jesus, you're living in the world. So I'm not necessarily saying he's a super bad guy doing bad things, but she marries him thinking she's going to change his life, or she starts dating him thinking she's going to change his life, and he'll come to church with her and he'll live for Jesus for her. Or you can flip that around on a man falling in love with a woman. We learned from Samson that didn't work out so well for him, did it? And became unequally yoked. And what happened? Usually it's that believer gets pulled away. That believer gets pulled away, gets drawn away, gets to a point that they are pulled away. And Jacob saw this would happen, and Jacob saw it might cause strife. And so he told his brother, let me walk with my herd. We're going to be slower than you guys. We're not going to be as fast. You're going to tax my people, and it would be easier for us. And you know what? I'll come visit you. When we get settled, I'll come visit you and see. And so verse 15 says, and Esau said, let me now leave with thee some of the folk that are with me. And he said, what needeth it? Let me find grace in the sight of my Lord. So Esau returned that day on his way unto Seir. So we see here that Esau, he goes on back home. He goes on back home, and then we see verses 17 through 20 that Jacob journeys and settles throughout the land. So here's Jacob. He's finally home. It's been 20 years. He left a schemer. He left stealing his brother's birthright. His family had sent him away. He pretty much, to the point, he was leaving, but he fled. He was scared of his brother. He spent 20 years or so. He gained 2 wives. I think it's 11 children right now, because there's one more to be born, I do believe. And then God finally calls him home. And it says, so Esau returned that day on his way into Syria, and Jacob journeyed to Succoth, and built him a house, and made booths for his cattle. Therefore the name of the place is called Succoth. And Jacob came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, where he came from, Panaram, and pitched his tent before the city. And he bought a parcel of land where he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. And he erected there an altar and called it Eli Elohe Israel, which basically that means God of Israel. So we see here Jacob is finally home. Jacob has made it home to his family, or to his family's land. He is actually, from the way I understand it, Hamor is the one that sold Abraham that parcel of land, and that's where Sarah is buried at also. And that is also where Rachel will be buried, Leah will be buried, Jacob will eventually be buried there, Isaac is buried there. But he's finally home. But next week, as you get into 34, you'll see things aren't as hunky-dory as you think they would be. Because as he moves into that area of land, people start eyeing his daughters. And if you're a dad in here and father in here, you don't care for that much. But in that chapter, we'll see some things that Jacob's brothers decide to do to take into their own hands what they'll do. But in this chapter, that whole buildup of thinking that he's going to get killed, that his family's going to get killed. And as he tried to figure it out, I think he learned a lesson here that God is in control, and it's a lesson we all could learn. That when we run into hard things in our life, when we run into predicaments that we have no control of, when we run into things, we need to stop trying to figure it out ourselves and give it to Him. We need to stop saying, well, God isn't going to know how to handle it. Let me fix it and give it to Him. And I know we're all guilty of it. And I'm not just talking about us four in here. I'm talking as a whole. We're all guilty of it, trying to figure out how we're going to fix it ourselves. But then we also need to learn to be happy with how God fixes the problem. Because sometimes it doesn't come out. God's fixes aren't the ways we see they should be. But down the road, I really believe, just from reading my Bible, that it'll be better for us to trust Him and walk with Him and His answers. David, will you pray for us?